Hello everybody! Do I look obnoxious wearing sunglasses indoors when it's the most dreary day outside? Probably, but I have a bit of a swollen left eye at the moment and I did not want to immortalise that on the internet just because I shouldn't feel insecure about it, but I do, and so I thought I would just wear my sunglasses. But I must admit it's protecting me from the very big bright light behind the camera right now, so normally it blinds me, so the sunglasses are helping there. Today's book is It Starts With Us, which is book number 2. The first book was It Ends With Us, and it's by Colleen Hoover. I know not everybody loves Colleen Hoover, and people don't like some of the things that she writes about, but the fact is, if you don't like it, you don't have to read it. I find her books very easy to read. The fact that these books in particular, It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us, regards an abusive relationship, I can understand why people wouldn't want to read about that. For me, that isn't a trigger. If you don't like it, you don't like it. So let's get in with the blurb, and then I will talk to you about what I thought about this sequel. Lily and her ex-husband Ryle have just settled into a civil co-parenting rhythm when she suddenly bumps into her first love, Atlas, again. After nearly 2 years separated, she is elated that for once time is on their side, and she immediately says yes when Atlas asks her on a date. But her excitement is quickly hampered by the knowledge that though they are no longer married, Ryle is still very much a part of her life, and Atlas Corrigan is the one man he will hate being in his ex-wife and daughter's life. This was 400 pages on the phone, so it might seem like slightly less if you're reading it full size. In general fiction, romance and contemporary, target audience, adult, explicit. Yeah, so there are some fairly graphic sex scenes. You've got that kind of imagination in this book, so yeah, I'd probably put it at like 16 up. I really liked what Colleen Hoover did with It Starts With Us, because the first book, It Ends With Us, was, I mean, obviously it got huge on Book Talk. There were lots of things going out about people getting to that point in the book when they realised what Ryle was capable of, and this book just gives you an ending, a happy ending. I'm just going to say it, a happy ending for Lily and Atlas. And baby Emerson, because you know from the previous book that Ryle has a horrible temper on him and is an insanely jealous man. And so when Atlas and Lily actually start dating again, she wants to keep it secret from Ryle. She doesn't know how he's going to react to the fact that Atlas is actually back in her life now. And having read the first book, you know that that was a big part of where Ryle's anger came from. So I'm really glad that Colleen Hoover gave fans of It Ends With Us this story, because where it did end in the first book, it wasn't exactly the happy ending that everybody wanted. It was a very hard book to read because it's one of those books where you do fall in love with Ryle at the beginning until you realise what he's capable of. And I think that's what angers people about these books. The fact that you spent the time of the first book falling in love with Ryle and falling in love with Ryle and Lily, and then when you see his jealousy come out and his anger come out, it feels like a stab to the heart, because you're just like, no, he can't be capable of that. And it's just like, he is. And when you see Lily trying to defend stuff, and you're just going, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and you're just like, that still doesn't give Ryle the excuse. And people who have read the first book, I'm assuming that people who have read the first one will then go into this one. It's not exactly a story that you really just want to go straight in with. It Starts With Us, because so much happens in the first book to explain the situation that they are all in. Because in the first book, when Ryle comes across her diaries, because she does diary entries from her teen years in the first book, and it's all like, Dear Ellen DeGeneres, and yeah, that aged well. And you still see some of those diaries throughout this book, because Lily lets Atlas read some of them to explain what she was going through, and then in response, Atlas writes some letters to Lily to show where his head was at during the time that Lily was writing her diary. So you've got those diaries, and this whole book is done from the point of view of Lily and then Atlas. So you're just going back and forth between the two. Did the first book include chapters from Ryle? I actually can't remember. But his anger and his jealousy, He just completely overtakes him, and you're just like, if it wasn't Atlas, I'm sure there would have been something else for him to concentrate on. But yeah, compared to the first book, this really does help to wrap up some things in regards to everybody's status, I guess, because it pretty much picks up straight away after the last chapter of the book, because in that one, at the very end, you see Lily with baby Emerson, and she runs into Atlas on the street. This picks up pretty much straight after that, where Lily's just like, oh, I can't believe I ran into Atlas, and you just be seeing that relationship blossoming again, because obviously she hadn't actually seen him for a very long time, and she wasn't in a relationship, despite what Ryle thinks in his jealous mind. There wasn't actually anything happening between Lily and Atlas while she was in the relationship with Ryle. But he did become a comfort for her when he was just like, I see something happening here, and I want to give you a safe space. So while there wasn't a relationship happening, I guess it kind of, you could see the spark happening to what was going to happen in this book, essentially, even though Colleen Hoover didn't know she was actually going to write a sequel until it all blew up. When the first book stabs you repeatedly in the heart in regards to seeing that relationship and Lily not wanting to repeat history in regards to what she witnessed between her mother and her father, and going, oh, it won't happen to me, and then it does happen. And even in this book, you see Lily still beating herself up over certain things, and she's like, I don't want to put Ryle in a bad mood, which is why she's still keeping secrets from him. And it is Atlas in this book that actually stands up to Ryle and says, you know, if this relationship between me and Lily works out, we need to behave like adults. Because from Atlas's point of view, he's just there going, Ryle, you're always going to be in her life because you are Emerson's father. So when Ryle is there flipping out and going, what am I supposed to do if you continue to have this relationship? And I just love Atlas in that moment when he just goes, we need to act like adults. We need to be a team. And he was just like, really? She's like, yeah, because I'm having a relationship with Lily and I love her. I'm never going to be Emerson's biological father here. You are. So you need to behave like a fucking adult and not fly off the handle over this, because Lily is already trying to get her lawyer involved because she knows how bad your temper is. She's terrified that someday you're going to flip out over Emerson, and she's doing everything she can to protect her family. And at this point, you guys are divorced and you need to behave like adults. And seeing Atlas say that in this book was just such an eye-opening, wonderful moment, because it's just like, yes, you have somebody with just common sense here. But yeah, so I think the reason people were so angry about the first book is because they fell in love with the idea of Ryle, and then they realised, oh wait, this is not the person who I thought he was going to be. Really, they should have seen it coming. I mean, even in the author notes at the end of It Ends With Us, Colleen Hoover admitted that she herself fell in love with Ryle as she was writing the story until she realised what she needed to do with it. And because it seems like she wrote it and she didn't really have it all planned out, and she was just like, oh wait, no, I need to do this. And she was gut-wrenched at the fact that she was taking this character who she had created and made so lovable, and then she just gave him this temper and jealousy, and she was aware that she'd fallen in love with that character and she was doing this in creating this world. So yeah, I mean, I have, to say that Colleen Hoover is one of my favourite authors is completely the wrong thing to say. Like, I've read a book by her which I did not like. I did not like. It made me feel something, which is, I say, if a book makes you feel something, it's kind of doing its job. It was the book Ugly Love, and the way that it was written and the couple of the book, and I was just like, this is just an entirely toxic relationship and these two should not be end up together. And then they did, and it was just like, this feels like it's romanticising something which shouldn't be romanticised. And people might think that about these books, with the idea of romanticising this abusive relationship. The fact is, she wasn't romanticising it. She was proving the point that just because you're handsome and charming doesn't mean you're a good person. it doesn't feel like it's been romanticised in this book, because some people think that the way that Lily has been written, with her trying to defend stuff and going, oh, it won't happen to me, and it was just like, oh, but I did it. It was just like, this isn't romanticising the story or romanticising the idea of emotional or physical abuse. It's putting out there a person who does not know how to deal with it. And I can only imagine how many people out there would actually identify with Lily and the way that she handles everything. She witnessed an abusive relationship as a child between her parents, told herself it wasn't going to happen again, and she wasn't going to let it happen to herself, and then she falls into that relationship herself, and she goes into defending him. And it's just like, it's because she's being gaslit and manipulated by a man who she thought she loved. And so I can only imagine how many people are out there that has actually happened to, and they're just like, finally somebody realises that it's not that easy to leave. Because for Lily, she's just like, oh, but it, you know, oh, maybe I shouldn't have spoken about Atlas, maybe I shouldn't have done this because I should have known how I was going to react. And it's just like, you kind of want to give her a big hug in that first book and say, this is not your fault. He would have found anything to blow up over, and he chose to blow up over this. His jealousy and his anger is something that he needs to deal with, and that is something that is established in this book, in the second one, where she does actually have a conversation with Ryle and says, you have anger issues and you need to get help, and I am getting my look, because after, you know, because they've had this custody arrangement where Lily pretty much has full custody because Ryle's working hours, being a doctor, just doesn't work out for having 50-50. And so she has primary custody, but she does have an arrangement for Ryle to see Emerson. But she does say, you know, I don't trust you to have her overnight. And he says, oh, when will you? And it was just like, when Emerson can talk and she can tell me what's going on. And I'm just like, yes! I really feel for Lily throughout this whole thing, and so I feel like the good people in this book, it's just like, you are fighting for, oh, sorry, just whack into my face. You feel like you're fighting with and for Lily throughout both of these books. And to the people who think that she's romanticising abuse, no, she's portraying what is actually quite a realistic relationship looks like in regards to a woman who does not know how to leave. And I think that's a very important distinction to make, because especially because I know that a lot of Colleen Hoover's books have become quite controversial. I've seen advertised on YouTube videos where people completely rip Colleen Hoover to shreds, and it was just like, if you don't like her, you don't have to read it. If you don't like the story, you can put it down. Admittedly, I'm not the kind of person that just stops reading. I've never come across a book where I actually just couldn't read anymore. I don't know if maybe one day I will come across a book where it's just like, no, I just can't finish this. Like, it's not worth it. Art is subjective. A story is art. So if you don't like it, that's fine. But don't tell people that something is bad just because you didn't like it. But yeah, if you don't like something, just put it down, turn it off. You don't have to buy it, wear it, whatever. And the fact is, if you bought a book and you got to the end and you realise you didn't like it, you have every right to return that book. Believe it or not, you can return books. Me, I read everything on my library app, so I'm not out of pocket for it. I mean, obviously there are books that I do buy, and if I've read something through the library app that actually, I was just like, actually I want to own that, I will go out and buy it. I did it with Daisy Darker. I've been reading Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mum Died, and to be honest, I want to go out and buy that book. But if you don't like something, you don't have to keep it. But going out and telling people something that's like bad just because you didn't like it, that's just shitting on people who did enjoy it. I just think it's a really bizarre thing to do and go say, like, this is a bad book, this was horrible, and then you've got the other people out there going, well, I enjoyed it. What does that say about me? And it's like, it says nothing about you. It says everything about the person who said they hated it and the way they're sharing that.
Editing Debbie just popping in just to say that I have seen some reviews that talk about a problem with blurbs, basically, of Colleen Hoover saying that there are certain things she doesn't want to include on the synopsis on the back of her books. And the thing is, I think an author has every right to hold on to certain information in regards to books if it is like a big spoiler or if it's a big twist, and that people weren't really happy that the twist in It Ends With Us was that Ryle was abusive. I don't think she should be forced to include that on a blurb. Obviously, people have different opinions about trigger warnings, and to be honest, at the time I'm making this, there's a big thing in theatre at the moment regarding trigger warnings. It's a difficult one to have an opinion on, but when it comes to this book, I do think that the author has every right to say what they want or do not want included on that synopsis. And the fact is, there are other ways to find out. You don't have to just look at a synopsis to get all the information. So if you are concerned about something and you're not sure, the internet is at your disposal. And you can always ask other people and say, I don't know much about this book. There's not much on the synopsis online or on the back of the book. Can anybody tell me what the trigger warnings are? And I know that there are websites dedicated to things like that. I do believe that people have a right to access that information, but it doesn't have to be in the blurb.
But yeah, I had all the feelings reading both of the books, and I'm so glad that Colleen Hoover decided to follow up It Ends With Us with It Starts With Us, because you're looking at the start of that healthy relationship between Atlas and Lily. And yeah, I love their relationship. I love how they are together. I love how when they go out on their first date and Lily is so exhausted because she hasn't slept properly because she has a baby and she falls asleep in the car. And Atlas just stays in the car, reads the diary that she gave him and gave him permission to read. And while she's asleep, he reads it. And then she wakes up like an hour later and he's just there going, it's fine. I cancelled our reservation. I realised we were going to miss it. And I just wanted to let you sleep because you looked exhausted. And now let's go get a takeaway or something. It shows you the huge difference between how she was treated by Ryle and how she was treated by Atlas. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that Colleen Hoover decided to give us the happy ending that we all needed. So, It Starts With Us, Colleen Hoover. There is your front cover. I'm just so glad that she decided to give Lily and Atlas the happy ending that they needed. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. I might still be wearing the sunglasses. We'll see. Bye!